Welcome to another Rooster Talk, where we talk to ASX companies and hear the stories and get a real update of what's been happening on the story. Today, we've got Adavale Resources Limited back with us. ASX code is ADD. Current market cap is around 7.86 million. And we've got the executive director here in place of Alan Riekie, David Riekie. We're here in the UWA club in Crawley. So David, welcome to Rooster Talk. Thanks for giving us time. Adavale's been on our watch list for good 12 months plus. Project in Tanzania, give us an update.
Thanks, Noel. The update, we just recently put out an announcement as of today, so that probably starts to find out where we've achieved a milestone event, I believe, in our exploration activities in Tanzania. As you've said, we've been in ground, in country for probably about 12 months. And during that time, we've actually been able to conduct some early term drilling to understand what the environment is that we've encountered in Tanzania, in this East African nickel belt. Early term, we were using geochem soils to get some understanding as to whether we're in the right territory. We certainly are. We know that for a fact. A lot of the early term drilling had hit the right rocks, but it wasn't until we actually started to introduce gravity into the equation late last year, where we ran a gravity program over what we called Target 7, where we started to really understand that the missing ingredient was the gravity, so we could get a great deal more information to refine our programs. And some people, including the directors and shareholders, might have been a little bit frustrated when we did start the drilling and we didn't have the early term successes that we may have been able to achieve. But I think the patience that we've been able to deploy on putting together a very, very comprehensive gravity program, it doesn't sound that sexy, but it certainly unlocked an enormous amount of potential that we always thought was there. So we recently put out, as of today, the fact that we've discovered something like 32 anomalies in this region. We know it's got a lot of potential. We've actually seen our neighbour in Kabanga Nickel have some enormous success over a long period of time. It's got a 60 million tonne resource there, really good grade. We've actually tried to emulate some of those understandings by what we've deployed in the gravity. So John Hicks, effectively a non-exec director, but he's our technical director for all sense and purpose. We've actually used his experiences and skill sets. He's a real advocate for gravity and started to deploy that in our program. We've got some very good geophysicists. We've been using them to great effect, and they've been able to deploy the teams that we've had in country. A little bit of background, we actually had one team over there to start with, just to understand that what we were achieving was going to be rich information, which was enormously successful, so we thought we'd actually amp it up. So we deployed 2 teams and then realised that this is fantastic. We had 4 teams going pretty hard to cover a big area. 1,000 square kilometres is a big area, and we've covered it very well, and that's reflected in some of the information you're seeing in the releases now, so on the images. So that's where we've got to. The exciting bit's going to start. We've got about 2 weeks before we get our helicopter in there, and that's going to fly the EM. That's the deep penetrating EM that will give us an idea of where the plate sits, so we know relative to the gravity, where the EM signatures are going to say this is where we need to start drilling. So the drilling will be hot on the tail of that. So we've probably hastened slowly, and we've got to this inflection point. I use that word a bit, but it is an inflection point. We've done all the hard yards with the gravity. We've done the early term drilling. We know we've got the right ground. We've seen all the prospectivity. We've seen this, for instance, the Lahuma trend is mineralised. We know there's nickel there. We just need to find out what grade it's going to be and how big it's going to be. So flying the heli and then moving into that important stage of drilling is really going to see the value catalyst be tuned up yet again.
I guess this is one of those stories where a lot of investors need to really appreciate that exploration is not an overnight success thing. It does take time. You can't figure things out in that period of time. It's always we're talking years or months to years as opposed to days to weeks, right? And the geophysics. Can you? I mean, geophysics is we've just had a discussion off camera that it is a mainstay of what we do today because it helps us lower the cost of exploration, right?
Yeah, look, you've hit the Noel, you've hit the nail right on the head. With what we think is a big opportunity, we need to make sure that every bit of drilling dollar that we're going to spend is really, really effective. So the sensible way to approach it, and I think that's why the way we have done that, is use all the information that's available to you to make the best informed decisions, and geophysics and this technical aspect of the exploration program and the exploration life cycle. If you get that right, you can replicate it. Now, I've actually just mentioned we've got 32 anomalies. I don't think we're going to have 32 deposits, but we're going to have a lot. So if we're going to drill this out, we want to make sure that just about every hole is going to be a winner for us. So we're talking about using that information that experts can provide us guidance on to give us the best chance of ongoing success. We know we're going to have success because we think it's already there, and I think we're very confident that we will find some pretty interesting stuff, and that's the exciting bit. But excitement needs to be translated into providing all of those key bits of information for us to make sure that when the drilling starts, we drill to get a resource. That's what we want to try and do. So we don't want to have too much wildcatting. We need to understand the rock types we're in. We've got an idea of that. We'll also use some downhole EM as well to try and get some real good vectoring in and correlation on where we're going to put the drill pads to do the drilling. But you've rightly pointed out, exploration is, you might get really lucky and you put a hole in and light, but we want to make sure that with the scale of ground holding that we've got, we're actually using those monies to best effect. That's really it.
Yeah, I think that's really important because I can see your strategy in the sense that geophysics is prime on what you do now to refine what goes down the road. The truth machine comes and the drilling, because sometimes the drilling can confuse your strategy, if you want to put it that way.
Look, that's exactly, that is right. That's correct, and I think we've not been endowed with lots of really, really good information. We've had a lot of information. We need to be discerning. We need to rake through that and get the best out of it. And we've recently used, and it was in the announcement today, we've used some forward modelling to understand what we would have seen if we run the gravity surveys over Kabanga. And I think that it's public information, but we've used that as a template and a reference point for us to actually apply that really, really good knowledge to find out what we would have seen if we'd actually, literally, run the meters over, run the gravity survey over those areas. Now, they're not really, really big, long, wide and whatever, so we want to make sure we didn't miss them. That's why we did the spacings at the 400 metres. That's why we've used a threshold called megagal. It's not familiar, people aren't really familiar with that, but it actually gives you an understanding as to the density of the material that you're seeing below ground. We actually put a line across it and said, well, everything above 1 megagal is going to look really, really interesting. So that's where we're going to be flying the heli, and that's where in likelihood we're going to be doing
that's
the drilling.
By inference.
That's by inference.
From Kabanga, yeah?
Yeah. Now, I'd like to lay claim to the fact that I did that. It wasn't me. It was my technical guys that said, we all sort of strategized and worked out exactly how we're going to get the best bit of information from all of the hard that we're going to do. So we're not going to miss it, and we are going to start throwing up these good anomalies. And the other thing too is that it's also really important to remember that we're discovering new areas, right? These aren't picked over, these are new discoveries. So one element of the resource with our neighbour was this thing called Tembo. Now Tembo's blind. There's no surface expression, you wouldn't have seen it. So you would have missed it. In fact, it wasn't discovered until about 13 years after they discovered the two other main bodies, because they were actually sticking up and they actually had surface expression. So what we're finding now with what we're doing is that we're looking for those blind deposits of merit, of scale, of size, of depth. So that's what we've done, and that's where we're going on it, and our journey to make sure that when we start flying the EM and we do the drilling, we're going to have the best chance of finding something which our neighbour's already got. So that's it.
From investor and from people like myself who know enough geology to be dangerous, when I look at your image and your geophysics and the fact that you're next to Kabanga, and then I think of all those neurology stories. So you got a bunch of neurology stories that are just neurology story. Then you got a neurology story that has some sort of technical or scientific fact to being neurology. And you look at the Pilbara iron ore. Everyone thinks, Tom Price and the Newmans. Then you get all these peripheral deposits popping out, and you get gold projects similar. Then you get the porphyry, where a lot of people say if you get one big porphyry, really, then if you find another big porphyry, it's really hard to find. But if you look down the western margin of the States, it's porphyry everywhere, and same as down South America and along the margins, right? When we look at Kabanga, how should we think of this? Because is it just pretty pictures? Are you just telling us it's near because that's your story? How should investors capture that everything you've just said and say, hey, you know what? I think this guy's got some merit.
Yeah, look, good point. I mean, I referenced when we first started that we're talking about a dominant land holding position in the East African nickel belt. It's called that for a good reason, because there is a proliferation of these opportunities. It's not an isolated pod. What we're seeing is something similar to like a Cambelda, where you've got like multiple opportunities, high grade, that sit within a particular type of event or geological event structure that's been developed there. So we see that what we've got an opportunity further north to where we are. It doesn't stop there. I mean, it does continue all the way up to Uganda. In and around Kabanga, we've actually taken some time and effort to understand that we've got the right type of intrusives that has hosted this type of mineralisation. So our next lot of iteration, the clever guys that are going to go out there and start analysing our core that we're hopefully going to start for them to work on very shortly, to understand how far it's migrated from the Cambelda. So it's like an event, it's like a pulse. So what you're seeing is that it's not dissimilar to what we've seen in and around Western Australia, which is this multiple deposits, high-grade opportunities, high-grade lenses that sit within a key event. I'm not technical. This is geological talk that suggests that there are a few events that have happened in the geological cycle that see West Australia really important, Tanzania, Norilsk, stuff over in Canada. All of those sort of events have meant that this style of mineralisation occurs, and it's not an isolated pod, right? It's over a particular jurisdiction or particular area, and we think this western side of Tanzania, this East African nickel belt, is one of those events. So we see that the ground holding we've got, we will start to refine, but we don't consider it like I'm saying, an isolated pod, because it was an event. It was a geological event. So the plumes will go out, and you've got these pulses that actually push this material into the country rock. So we're finding out where that intrusive, where that pushing is actually sort of leading us to, and refining our story around it.
Okay. Now, onto the sort of corporate side of things. As we try and point out to people, exploration isn't overnight success. Investors have a different frame of mind. They think that it should be done in weeks and days, and then your job is to say, no, it's not going to happen. So how is that feedback to you guys? Because you're on the board. How are the investor sentiment flowing to you guys?
Look, everyone would like to have success. Everyone wants success. People demand success. So we're working out how we're going to achieve that success in the best time frame that we think will give us the best chance of that success. I mean, a bit anecdotal, but BHP was in this area 30, 40 years ago, right? It went away, it just found all this stuff, it came back. They're patient, they've got the view that if it's good, they'll come back and they'll have a look at it. That's exactly what they've done. They've gone and invested $100 million into our neighbour, not a small investment, all right? And we see that, that level of resilience and that level of continuity of, and belief in what you've found there is good enough. Something like 60 million tonnes at 2.6% is pretty good, right? We'd like to be able to replicate that. We want that success, but we also want to scale. You want to have something that's of scale and commercial merit and commercial grade. So all of the things that we're doing are giving us the best chance of nickel discoveries. The big guys can actually sort of take a bit more time and spend more money on it. We don't have that luxury, so we need to be more discerning. We would like to think that we can actually spend our money really wisely. So when we do start drilling, like I said, we will drill to a resource. Everyone would like to think that we can discover something immediately, and as we've spoken off camera, exploration does take a little bit of time. It's using the correlation and the great depth of knowledge that's in the people on the board, that we take advice from externals and whatever, delivering what we know is going to be a comprehensive plan that's going to give us the best long-term commercial success. If you discover something and it looks pretty interesting but you can't replicate it, it's a one-hit wonder. Don't want to be a one-hit wonder. You want to be around for a long period of time and show some real value starting to emerge in our assets and that portfolio that we've assembled. And we have a dominant position. We know that it's not just lots of neurology. It would be neurology if we pegged all this ground and we had one little isolated pocket where we're seeing all these anomalies. We don't. We've got it on both sides, east, west, north, south. It's all there, and it's a matter of actually being able to be as discerning as we can, using the techniques that are going to give us the best chance of those successes.
Yeah, I think what you said there is important to highlight, is that yes, you're near a known deposit, but you're also near a deposit someone's just put $100 million in, and BHP doesn't do that kind of stuff. Mind you, those big companies do stupid things in hindsight, but at this moment in time, 100 million into the ground is not a small chicken feed, right? But look, the other, I guess, issue that investors may see with companies like yourself is jurisdiction concerns, right? Can you share with us that?
Yeah, look, it's interesting. The whole geopolitical situation that we're seeing at the moment, Russia, Ukraine and whatever, has a bearing on where people want to see their assets being developed. That's number one. Locally in Tanzania, had went through a rough patch going back a number of years. Personally, we think that that's changed. That's why we've gone back in there. I think that's why you're seeing BHP's gone back in there. So they've taken an assessment on what they think the jurisdiction or the country risk is going to be. I think they've made big inroads as to how they re-engage with the business community. I know that there's some dedicated teams over there that are helping finesse and revisit the relationships that had projects stalled. So I think President Hassan has actually engaged and embraced that in a very, very positive manner, considered, collaborative, and working towards outcomes. And we've seen some beneficiaries in various companies that have actually seen their projects move forward. I do honestly think that the likes of a BHP, as bold as they might appear going back in there, they're pretty considered, right? They know where you've got to go to the places where the good stuff is. We know the good stuff, the nickel is there. So they've made that decision. Can they work with the government there? Well, obviously, they wouldn't have put money in there, and they wouldn't wasted shareholders' money, because it's a reasonably high profile investment. It's not a big one dollar-wise. I'm sure they're going to put a lot more money in there because they'll have to develop it, but it's a very considered one. We think we've got another couple of features in country. Our chairman worked over there many years ago. I've been there as well. I've worked there as well. We've handpicked our team over there. So we've got very good relationships with the authorities. We're trying to be the good corporate citizens that we want. The other important thing to remember is that operating in Tanzania and operating in many African countries, you need a social license. So we've taken that ESG opportunity and actually continue to provide support of bridge to aid. We're going to be providing some assistance with nurses and whatever. What I'm trying to say is that a respectful social license to operate in any country is always going to be well received. We'd like to think that that will continue. We'd like to think that the government will basically continue to adopt this collaborative approach moving forward, because that's the way we're really going to unlock the value. You find it, you work and you do all the things that you need to do to keep your licenses compliant and up to date, but you operate with the right social license, which we think we've actually done, demonstrated, and will continue to do.
I guess that's a good approach, in the sense that is somewhere along the line someone's got to show their hand first, and your good intent moving forward. Look, the market's recently had a bit of a topsy-turvy thing, to say the least.
A few wobbles.
Well, a few wobbles with capitals. How's that translating to you guys on all fronts? You know, a general question.
Look, generally, I think that the market dynamic is always going to be something that you have no control over, right? You need to actually make sure that you're doing what you can do to add value and continue to operate as effectively and as efficiently as possibly can. You know, we're an explorer. We spend money. We want to make sure that people think that, you know, we're spending the money wisely and we're actually unlocking value. And I think what we're trying to demonstrate with our announcements and our activities is that, you know, like every executive director, every managing director that will speak to the public and the capital markets, we are undervalued. You only need to look at those opportunities that have actually got a much greater market cap. We want to make sure that if people consider us, you know, a good opportunity to invest in, they're going to be rewarded. It might not be next week, it might be next month, but it will be a handsome reward. So the opportunity to look at, you know, what we're unlocking by way of value and how that might resonate with other people. My background's corporate, right? So I understand the geology because I listen to my geologists and I can probably understand what they're telling me. But this becomes a corporate opportunity as well, because we've actually got a market cap circa 7.5 to 10. We were higher. The market's actually pushed our price down, as it is doing to many, many others. It's how we're going to rebound. We can't worry about what's happened in the past. We've got to look forward to see whether we've got a rich opportunity of exploration potential, which we honestly believe. You know, I became a shareholder before I became a director. You know, I don't like normally buying on market because it sends a mixed signal. It's like, what do you know that other people don't know? We put out an announcement, that's public information. If I've got the monies to put more money in, I will do that. But the whole criticality of what we're doing at the moment is to make sure that people realise we've got some real value here. We've got a dominant holding. We've got some great potential with regards to what we've already discovered and what we're going to do. And the drilling's not going to be in 6 months' time or 12 months' time. It's just there. It's about a month and a half away. So we know when we start drilling, we'll get the visual straight away. We have to back it up with assays and like. But we see that we think we're going to be a rubber band. We will spring back quickly. And I think probably a lot quicker than others because we've got this rich opportunity of, you know, value catalyst coming forward. So that's where we see it. So hopefully that's covered.
Look, I think I kind of agree. It's that like if you speak to any sort of well-worn investors, they always talk about taking that time. Nothing comes quickly and things like that. But look, going forward, you know, we've touched on some of these. What's the news flow that you would be coming for guys?
Yeah, good. Noel, yeah, look, I just wanted to recap on that because we've sort of highlighted in the last announcement, but we've just finished the gravity. We're going to be refining those priority targets to fly the EM. Now, the EM will happen in a couple of weeks. It'll take about 10 days, and we're going to be processing the information on the way through. So we're going to hit the ground running as to where we actually focus in on prepping the drill pads, so we can start the drilling in August. So that's the news flow over that next period of time. You know, the drilling campaign will basically start, and then we'll reconsider what we've discovered, because you know a resource drill out will cost money at that point in time. So we want to make sure that we've demonstrated all the value that we've actually got the right opportunities to drill out to chase a resource. So moving forward, 6-12 months, we'd like to think we've got a resource. We'd like to think it's going to have the right scale and grade. So that's our program, I think, probably for the next 6 to 12 months.
Okay, well, that's a good way to end. Let's see, you know, your 2 cents worth, which investors all like, but you know, investors think 1.5 months should be 1.5 weeks. Just thought I'll add that in there.
Yeah, look, I'm probably hearing that, and I'm feeling that pain from a lot of people. It's trying to be patient in a busy world. I mean, we see that there are other opportunities out there, but we've spent a lot of time. We put a lot of energy into this. Our board is aligned with where we're going, how we're doing it, and I think, you know, patience will be rewarded. And I think the we're getting to the exciting part of the whole cycle to start drilling and find out exactly how big and how good it's going to be. We know a lot of these areas are mineralised. We've already seen that with previous drilling and so we just need to make sure that we've got the best chance of finding the best bits of those mineralised zones to give shareholders a reward and the directors probably some of the accolade of actually being persistent and doing what we're doing. So hopefully people will join us with this journey. I mean, it is an exciting period of time. People use this word exciting all the time. I think it's going to be defining. I think it could provide a real welcome uplift and uptick in share price. That's a reflection of what we're finding.
Okay. I took great pleasure. I've been in your shoes before, so I thought I'd throw you under the bus. But you bounced back very well. Well recovered.
A few tyre marks on my back, but that's okay, Noel. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to chat. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you. Well, hopefully we've kept going with your journey, and I hope we keep going on and get your updates.
Well, I'd like to be sitting in front of the camera with yourself and Sandra in a few weeks' time.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, thank you.
Thanks. Pleasure.